I'm Dan Vo, and I'm a course leader at Sotheby's Institute of Art. I'm going to talk about your relationship to the art world and how we can help you find your way so you can grow and develop your practice. The art world can be a vast and slippery thing to define, but let's say it's the cultural, intellectual, and commercial framework that supports you and other artists in the creation, management, valuation, display, and distribution of art, your art. For you, there's always going to be a creative balancing act that you need to work out. You want to make art, but you're also going to have to carefully divide your time between doing that and running your business, making sales so you can pay bills, and do all the other things that you do in your life. So to use your time efficiently, it's important to understand how the art world works as an ecosystem so that you can focus your attention on the areas that are going to give you the best outcomes in the short term, and look ahead to the slightly harder to reach bits as part of a longer term strategy. So how is the art world an ecosystem, and how can you find your way through it? Well, the art world is populated with artists, buyers, dealers, curators, funders, commissioners, educators, critics. In this ecosystem, we might want to think about your artist's life cycle because there's going to be phases to your growth. Coming out of art school, you're an emerging artist, but then progressively you're developing or going through a series of stages. The usual trajectory might be to go from your grad school show to an artist-led group show. As you continue to develop, you might get picked up by a smaller art gallery and have your first commercial solo show, which I hope is accompanied by a decent review in a reputable art magazine or publication. This may lead to exhibitions in smaller art fairs as you start to gather local private collectors and even curator interest. And then you might start to go into international group exhibitions. Then a solo show with an established gallery as your work is added to more notable private collections. Museum interest in your work for exhibition and display or collection and a session will affirm something that has been happening all along this path, which is the cultural value of your work alongside the economic value of your work will be increasingly building. At some of the later stages, sufficient interest may lead to a debut at an auction house or a secondary market gallery or art fair. So there's a primary and secondary market. Primary basically refers to the first time a work is sold through you or a gallery, and secondary when it's sold again or resold, usually via a dealer or auction house. I should add that there are agreements in place that mean that you can get fees for resale of work, so it does go to you. If your work goes into the secondary market, buyers and investors will be very carefully watching your artist's record for work sold at auction because they're interested in your value going up and your reputation becoming consolidated. Now, rewinding a little bit, if you don't get picked up by a dealer at your grad show, or maybe you didn't go through art school, there are other ways to get on the ladder. You can still attract the attention of dealers or emerging artist agents through merit, and also by collaborating with other artists, participating in residency programs, building your own studio networks, and working with curators or galleries. You'll also be able to learn about these in some of the other films further on in the series. Another great way of building your network and knowledge of the art ecosystem is by working on your professional development and finding employment in galleries, art fairs, auction houses, museums, or even with other established artists. You could take up a supporting role or internship, find work as a studio assistant or artist's assistant, or you might want to take up a specialized role, perhaps as an art technician by hanging, packing, and moving art. You'll pick up invaluable skills, but you'll also be building a professional network of peers who will be moving up the ranks as you do. That network is vital because how you access knowledge and opportunities is a crucial part of your growth as an artist. Coming back to your practice, let's quickly talk about your studio. It's your working environment. It can be one of the biggest costs for you to consider. There are art charities, cooperatives, and partnerships that can help you find affordable studio space. A studio isn't just a workspace, but an opportunity to interact with other artists and buyers. If you take part in open studios where you open the doors to the public, which they love because they have access to you, you have the chance to explain your practice and show your work to potential buyers, funders, commissioners, curators, or even future collaborators. Having a studio means you can connect to a network of artists, so there's social and professional benefits. If having your own space is not immediately possible, you may want to share with another artist or group, but it's important to make sure that you have the facilities at hand to do your work and allow the room for you to grow and experiment. Something else to think about is applying for residencies because they'll give you even more chances for artistic exchange, and often you'll be involved with public programming, which is great. Another route into public programming might be to take up in pop-up programming as part of museum late events. They're usually themed, so if the fit is right, it's a great way of presenting new and innovative topical work, and it's quickly seen by a lot of people. There's also a range of art organizations and funding bodies that can help you along with grant money because it's really useful. It gives you time to think, time to create new work, time to train, network, and perhaps even find mentoring if that's what you need. As an example, in England, you can apply for Arts Council England Develop Your Creative Practice grants. ArtQuest, a program of University of Arts London, also regularly posts up opportunities, but I'm sure you can also find equivalent funders in your area too. There's also lots of non-profit galleries nowadays taking prominent high street locations that are geared towards emerging artists. They're often based around the values of diversity, equality, inclusion and access. So these non-profits may also have additional support for those from often marginalized backgrounds. So that's artists who are black, of color, disabled, from the LGBTQ+, that's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender and queer communities. Experienced artists often say it's best to price yourself at the stage and where you're at in your practice. For most, it's no good aiming too high. I think it's the same to be said. Pitch yourself for where you are in your career. Just as you're leaving grad school, you might not want to immediately leap into contacting blue chip galleries and auction houses, but do keep an eye out for emerging artist programs run by museums, though do steel yourself for a competitive bid. A strong social media and digital presence may really help. I will say, enjoy your journey through this art world ecosystem. Who knows who will make it into the canon of art and remain there. But there is always something to be said about the serendipitous nature of artists' careers. So returning to the idea of the creative balancing act, remember who you make your art for. Start there and the rest will come.